Hi, welcome to the Awkward Angler podcast, an authentic series talking about fishing, social justice, and storytelling with folks within the outdoor industry. I'm your host, Erica Nelson. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a self-taught angler that is passionate about sharing my learning journey. I am also a Brown Folks Fishing Ambassador and organizational leadership developer with incredible amounts of optimism. Understanding that we all have something to learn from each other, this podcast is for the aspiring, the beginner, the mediocre, and the expert angler willing to learn new skills and how to be a better ally. Working through hard conversations can definitely get a little awkward. We fumble through them and worry about getting it right. It's time to step out of your comfort zone and start getting awkward. This show is for mature audiences. Be sure to follow for updates on awkwardangler.com and on Instagram at awkwardangler. People of color have been demanding racial justice well before 2020. Why did it take the murder of George Floyd for companies and CEOs to publicly take a stance on anti-racism? And on the other side, why are some companies even afraid to speak out? People of color have also experienced racism and discrimination within the workplace. So now that their companies are making statements, how are they being held accountable? This week, we discuss performative activism that has been observed within the fly fishing industry that began around June 2nd, also known as Blackout Tuesday, and we'll discuss the impact we see today in the angling community. This is a conversation between a Black woman and an Indigenous woman, and we share our personal perspectives and observations as anglers in this space. Performative activism is a term referring to activism done to increase one's social capital, rather than because one's devotion to a cause. As we move into a new year, I would like to call in the fly fishing industry to consider responding versus reacting and doing it authentically. Hi, Demiesha.
Hey, Erica.
Welcome to my Awkward Angler podcast.
It's good that we got off to a very awkward start, right?
Yes, it's working. So if you don't mind telling folks, maybe introducing yourself and share whatever you would like to share about yourself.
Okay, I think I'll save the information about being a part-time, private dancer for the next show. But this one, I'll tell everyone that I'm actually the founder of an organization called Brown Girl Outdoor World. My name is Demiesha Dennis, and I am sometimes serious about the work that I do, but find it more fun to do when it's actually fun and engaging. And getting people outside is a part of my my life goal, and doing so through the organization and doing it in a fun and engaging way has made that project really interesting for me. I sometimes call myself a narrative disruptor because I love disrupting the narrative, and I love putting people in awkward situations, just like a certain someone I know, and just making people awkward in those spaces where they feel too comfortable and not wanting to do anything to get outside of that comfort zone. So that's my little narrative disruptor piece, and a community builder.
Nice. I like that. I like that you put narrative disruptor, and that's your title.
Yeah, totally.
When you talk about awkward, putting people in awkward situations or whatnot, what do you mean by that?
Just making people uncomfortable and not in a place where they feel like they can just sit there and not do anything to make change. Because again, nothing changes in our comfort zone. So putting people in a space where they feel like they need to do something different than they did 2 days ago, an hour ago, 5 years ago, just for something to be a little bit different.
Yeah, so to drive change, you need that awkwardness.
Need that awkwardness, definitely.
Love it, because it's exactly what I think as well. So I think that's why we get along so well.
I think so too. I mean, imagine if everyone was always comfortable and the conversation was always happy-go-lucky, right? I mean, we would still be in the same position we were, we probably would still be in real life slavery if we didn't get into the uncomfortable positions that we are in, over time.
Yeah. How awkward would that be today?
So just a little bit.
Yeah. Wow. So just really quick, how we met was via Instagram, right? And then my sister used to live in Toronto, and I went there for Christmas last year, and we finally got to meet up, and it was so funny because my parents and my family were like, who are you meeting? Are you going out with someone on Tinder? Like, what's going on here?
Do you even know anyone in Toronto? Why are you
Yeah.
meeting people in Toronto? And then this stranger shows up at your house at nighttime with a bottle of wine and say, let's go. And you hopped in my car.
Yes. Thank you, by the way. That was a great bottle of wine.
I'm glad we got that opportunity to actually
Yeah.
meet in person.
Yeah. Super awesome. Tell me a little bit about your fishing background. Like, when did you get into it? Have you grown up fishing? Yeah, tell me how you got into it.
Yeah. No, I didn't grow up fishing. I grew up in Jamaica, and everyone is always like, how did you grow up in Jamaica and you didn't grow up fishing? Well, I lived in the interior of Jamaica where I had to drive to the ocean. Not like Jamaica's that big to have that great of an interior, but it was still like a lot of the same things here were access to transportation at the
Mhm.
time when I was growing up and, family busy working. Fishing was more of a survival thing in Jamaica, not so much of a recreational thing. I
Mhm.
didn't actually take up fishing until I moved to Canada.
Mhm.
And my first fishing experience was actually with a piece of stick, crochet thread, and a safety pin. Needless to say, I caught nothing, but I think my date thought I was pretty cool. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, and it was behind a river behind my college actually, my old college that I went to.
Yeah,
So that was
that's
my first fishing experience. And then the first time I actually took fishing seriously was actually on a camping trip. Like we're going camping, it's by a
mhm.
lake. I'm getting a fishing rod and I'm getting my fishing license. Didn't know what the heck a fishing license was or how to get one, but through being inquisitive and trying to talk to people and figuring out what I needed to do, I got my license and went fishing and caught a sunfish and thought I had caught the greatest fish in the whole wide world.
Every fish is the greatest fish in the world, in my opinion.
I mean, you know, they are.
Yeah, I still get excited when I get those little fish, and then even like the big ones. I think I get scared when I have a big fish on because I'm like, I'm nervous. I don't know what to do. Is this okay? Like, I hope I'm not hurting it. Like, where it
So,
seems like, yeah, little impact with the little fish.
yeah, for me, I can't. I'm in such a brook trout place in my head that
Mm,
I'm so afraid to hook because I'm so gentle with the brook trout that I'm
yeah.
so afraid to hook like a big fish properly because I swear it's gonna end up in the tree behind me or something when I hooks it.
Unfortunately, that's happened to me with the little ones. I was just like flinging them back, and then I'm like dropping everything and running, trying to find it, and like running back and putting it in the water. So yeah, that
Gus the
happens.
awkward angler.
Yeah, exactly. That is literally half of the point of my name. So the other half is what we're going to talk about today. So, what were have your impressions been getting into fishing and looking at the fly fishing industry? Because you also do a lot of work within the outdoor industry. So, yeah, what's your um, observations and things been?
Well, I think we have to break it down into a whole bunch of different categories to actually get a real understanding of my perception of it because I approach it from the angle of a woman, but
Mhm.
first from the angle of a Black woman.
Mm.
Because when I was started fishing, I didn't see a lot of representation for women, period. I would see female anglers, but then the conversation became, why am I always the only Black female angler or the only woman of color female angler that I see out
Yeah.
here? It was never, oh wow, there's someone else like me, or oh wow, I feel so safe here because there are more women and there are more women who look like me out here. That was never ever the conversation or the thought in my head. It was
Mhm.
always, oh, I need to go fishing. I'm probably going to end up going with a bunch of dudes, which there's nothing wrong with that. Or
Mhm.
I'm going to end up just going on my own and, dealing with the challenges that come with being a woman in a space by yourself. And then with
Mhm.
the challenges of being a Black woman in an mostly white dominated space by myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that for sure. That's one of the things I immediately noticed was the lack of representation. It's like this is a
Mhm.
really cool thing to do. And then once I started to dive in and get gear and kind of get immersed into the community and the culture, either launching a boat or at the river, I was like, there's really nobody here that looks like me. And it really felt unsafe
Yeah.
and just kind of really unwelcoming. So
Yeah, I've experienced the whole unsafe piece, and I've experienced the you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't be here piece. You know, even in massive retailers here, when the everything happened in the US here, the effect came right over to Canada. And I'm standing in one of the main outdoor supply stores, and having to stand there waiting to be ignored while three sales reps spoke to these three guys with full-on anti-racist, anti-black or anti-black racist comments, with me standing there just looking and waiting for service. So,
Yeah,
you know, I've experienced that part of it, and it's no fun.
right.
But sometimes you use laughter to kind of just like deal with it in the moment, and then you don't buy your stuff and you walk out.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting how you say like laughter. I feel like a lot of women of color and people of color use laughter to kind of get over these oppressions and these, you know, discriminations and racist issues, you know, that come up in our faces. And it's just one of the things that I've observed in the people of color community. It's like, what else can you do? It's like, of course, this is going to happen. You know, it's no
Yeah,
surprise.
that's
Yeah.
why there are more funny Black people.
Yeah.
We've just had to use laughter a whole lot to get over a lot of stuff, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. Right. Which is interesting because it's like, so we're going to talk about Black Square Tuesday, which happened on June 2nd, 2020, right? And my response was laughter. I don't know about yours.
I don't know if you saw how far back into my head my eyes rolled just now. That was my Black Square moment, and that was my Black Square reaction when I saw that. And well, I actually have a video on my Instagram where my friend and I like woke up in the morning addressing that, and it was just like, what on God's earth is this nonsense? You know, and it wasn't even supposed to be about that. That's not what was Blackout Tuesday was for. But you know, there's so much co-opting of experiences and so much co-opting of social justice movements that sometimes we jump onto anything without even knowing the background behind it, and get so caught up in making everything look pretty and making everything look right and making it look like we're doing the right thing with no context or no information.
Yeah, exactly. So what is the background, if you don't mind sharing? Did you hear anything about how it started?
I thought it was for the music industry. That's what the Blackout Tuesday was about. It was
Mm-hmm.
for the music industry. Beyond that, I really didn't give a rat's ass. So I didn't really look at it too much, but I just knew it was not for or against anti-Black racism. And that's where it didn't matter to me anymore. Like, I didn't care about the movement behind it. I cared more about the the uh the falsehood of the show, the fakeness of the show, the performance of the show of putting up a Black square with nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard the term performative activism, and that seemed like that's what was happening that day. You know, I woke up and I remember seeing, you know, mostly from white people posting a black square, and I'm like, what is this? And then I remember watching your Instagram, and you still have it posted, right? On your,
Yeah, it's
is it
still
on?
there.
Okay, great.
I'm never
What's it?
taking it down.
I felt, you know, very like uncomfortable and not, you know, I'm used to feeling awkward and uncomfortable, but that just seemed like I didn't trust it.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you did your Instagram, I was like, yes, like, what is this? No, we don't even have any context to it. It's purely 100% performative, was my impression. But I
Mm-hmm.
was curious to see how this was going to unfold as like more people started posting, more people started posting. And then by the afternoon, I noticed a lot of organizations and companies started posting, or, you know, staff were reaching out to their supervisors, their bosses, of like, we have to say something. There was like this really big sense of urgency happening. And whenever I sense of urgency, I immediately don't trust it, because that is a characteristic of white supremacy. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah.
It's called I Am Not Your Black Square, by the way.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm
It's
not your
called
black square.
I Am Not Your Black Square.
I'm not your black square. Great. So yeah, that's such a great discussion that you had. And it was just like, I just remember hitting like the, like, yes, you know, every time we say yes, every time I hit the little hearts and everything,
Yeah.
because it was just so spot on. But if you wouldn't mind telling folks, like, what were things that you talked about? What were your impressions? Walk us through
It,
that.
It was just the hope of, again, the whole performative piece of it, and companies who, you see the black square and then you scroll back behind the initial black square, and that's the only thing that was black about their page was the square. I'm sure if they could have written the text in white, they probably would have written it in white as
Mm-hmm.
well. But everything about the organization prior to that black square was the representation of white dominant, was a white dominant representation. Some companies never had one single solitary black or other POC individual on it, or if they had POCs, it was white passing POCs on their page. And that just, it just made you like for a second to step back, and it's almost as if you didn't know yourself for a second, because on one hand you're like, oh my god, they're actually acknowledging it, and then on the other hand, but like, no, they're not acknowledging it, and this is only self-serving on a pat on the back to make it look like they actually care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like, racism didn't start with the black square. Racism didn't start when George Floyd died. Racism didn't start when Christian Cooper got harassed in a park by a white woman. That's not when racism started. And for you to think allyship starts in that moment, as it starts a conversation, it doesn't start the work. And I think a lot of people took the black square as a piece of work versus a conversation starter. And that's all it is for a lot of places. It started a conversation in the comments thread by the racists that they've been supporting forever and ever, about why are you posting it, why are you showing support, why are you, now you're being racist because you're supporting black people, or you're being racist because now you're posting something that didn't constantly support the narrative that white is right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I kind of want to jump back to what we were talking about with laughter, because I feel like that's all we could do is watch this unfold and unravel. Whereas white folks, and particularly white women, is something that I have observed in shock of, this is what is happening, and this is just something new. So, did you have that same response?
and that is why, again, on my Instagram I have shocked and appalled are not action words.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can be shocked and appalled all you want, but what is the shock, and what is the this moment of being appalled leading you to do? Are you
Right.
still constantly, still carrying about in your white ways and ignoring the rest of the world? Are you still carrying on in, you know again, the white is right and I am superior to everyone else, and I will post a black square to make you feel good for this moment, but don't
Mhm.
forget that you don't matter after that black square is gone.
Yeah, right. So we're 6 months down the line since that date, and that whole Justice June is what I've also heard it being called,
Hmm.
where everyone's woke now. We realize racism is real, and for some people, right? And some are still in shock, and some are still appalled, and some are still ignoring, that, thinking that this is a political movement. What do you have to say to those that think that this is like polarizing or a political statement?
It is a political statement,
Mhm.
and my whole existence as a black person is political. However, you can't represent the idea and the thought and the person I am through a black square. So, even if you posted that black square in June, where have all your actions led since then? What have you accomplished as an organization since then? What have you, as a white person with privilege and a whole ton of privilege, even if you are in the poorest category of whiteness in this country, or in, I keep on saying this country, I'm not American, I'm Canadian. Or even in Canada, it's still the same thing though. What have you
Exactly.
used that privilege to accomplish other than being shocked and appalled?
Hmm.
So 6 months down the line, we're still, you know, people are afraid to have conversations.
Hmm.
The movements that were, quote unquote, movements that were started around Black Square have been so heavily co-opted now that, like, I don't even want to look at the diversify outside hashtag anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen where so many people have co-opted that phrase, or co-opted the whole experience behind making a stance for Black and Indigenous peoples to be, how can I show off my whiteness for everyone else to see? And there's a lot of that in that whole hashtag, in that space, where it's either people are using the diversify outside or diversify outdoors to say, hey, pat on the back, I'm a great ally, this is what I did. Pat on the back, hey, I took a Black kid outside. Pat on the back, I formed a nonprofit for Black this. Or
Mm-hmm.
I watched a video of an Indigenous person today. I did so great.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a a full-on co-opting of the experience and a lot of pat on the backs for not doing any work. And a lot
Yeah.
of organizations who, again, had support from so many people, even other Black people in the community, or other, just saying, you're doing such great work, you're doing such great work, and they have done absolutely jack shit.
Right. So let's talk about some of the actions other than performative stuff that we've been seeing and all these hashtags kind of, spreading and whatnot. What have you seen or what have you been a part of since Blackout Tuesday?
I've seen a lot more willingness for people to donate to getting people outside. And so I started my GoFundMe to get more people into the outdoors and create a gear library for, since people are still so shocked and appalled that Black people don't see themselves in the outdoors, how can you use that shock and appalled to help me to get more people into the outdoors? So I started a GoFundMe for a gear library, and I hemmed and hawed at starting a GoFundMe in the first place because I hate asking for stuff. And I hate, but I found it was a way for me to, one, hold people accountable to the fact that they said they wanted to help and they wanted to make a change, and to see how committed they were to actually putting their foot into the ring to help us make a change. So doing that, just, since Blackout Tuesday, again, it's a realization that a lot of organizations who posted that Black square had no understanding of what it was to be Black. They had no understanding of what it was to be, to face any form of challenge, and not the organization, because I think we keep on mentioning organizations as if structures can hold emotions. So what are the people behind these organizations doing to create change? And so I've spoken to, I think, too many people for free over the past 6 months, just to speak about, actions that can be taken instead of just saying you're committed to the work, but showing up in communities and showing people that you actually care. How can you go into a community and sit your ass down and just listen and not have to act, not have to speak, not have to let whiteness be the precede the conversation to get you into a space? How can you now relinquish control that you've had for so long, simply based on your identity, to go into a space, sit down, be quiet, listen, and ask how you can help instead of coming in and telling us how you're going to help? So it's been a lot of conversations about that with quite a few organizations, and they, to be honest, for the ones that I care to speak to, they were very open and welcoming to listening, and that to me, that's super important. Being willing to listen and not just tell me what you want to do, but find out what you posted the Black square, you had no understanding. I have the experience. The community I'm trying to serve has the experience. How can you remove yourself from that Black square, remove yourself from that Black square conversation, and make real, meaningful contributions to making change?
Yeah, I've noticed that you've put in a lot of work over the last 6 months to do free work. And yeah.
If someone has an understanding and doesn't come to me from the perspective of being an organization, come to me as an individual wanting to chat, just wanting to I will have that conversation when my mental capacity is there for it. Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely walk that balance as well. And there's certain times where you're just like, this person really needs it and they have a really big impact and a big following. And so this is like more of a community service is kind of how I view that emotional free labor. But I'm also established a business out of it. So
Yeah.
It's an interesting balance for sure. So do you still think that it's time to listen at this point, 6 months later? How important is that versus doing stuff, like taking action?
To me, it depends on where you were before 6 months ago, because the impact that the understanding that you're going to have, if this was work you were doing before June, your understanding will be a lot different than the people who rushed into this in June and started, training for a marathon in June and wanted to run that marathon on the second day of June, or whenever they, like, there was no time. So many people came in and they wanted to, I'm going to do this project and I'm going to donate every dollar from this project to stuff that you're doing. And I'm like, no, slow down. That just completely shows me that you have no understanding of what you're getting yourself into. So it's been a lot of having hard, awkward conversations with people to tell them that they don't know what the hell they're doing, and to really just slow down again And yes, it still is time to listen, and it will always be time to listen. But listening to the point where it's going to lead you to action, not listening just to sit there and retain information or to, build your mental capacity without doing anything outside. So the listening has to lead to action, or else, again, that's entirely futile.
What do you think about Martin Luther King quotes?
That's my whole reaction. Like, honestly, it's always the same quotes. It's always the same quotes from MLK Jr. It's always the same quotes. No one knows what Martin Luther King actually said. Everyone goes on on Google and Google's MLK quotes that apply to a certain situation at a certain circumstance. And if it doesn't apply, then they go to the other quote.com to see what else they could find from someone else. So there's a whole lot of quoting going on with no concept of what they're quoting, no idea of who they're quoting. Because again, even in certain situations, the conversation that came out of Martin Luther King's quotes, they were not perfect, because there was still a lot of, anti-female, yeah, it gets me riled up quite a bit sometimes, because everybody wants to quote the MLKs, and everybody wants to quote Barack Obama, and everybody wants to quote, Nelson Mandela, without understanding who they were, understanding why those quotes came about, or understanding the struggles that led them to that place that they had to make those quotes.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's almost like romanticized a little bit to where it gets put out of context.
Yeah, it's a lot like, me standing on the edge of a mountain with my hand reached behind me and my boyfriend taking the picture, and yet I have an MLK quote. For what? How does it apply?
Well, because it probably made you feel good, right?
Yeah, sure.
Let's just pick the quote that makes me feel the best and warm and fuzzy, right? That's kind of what.
It's like a Sudoku puzzle. You pick the quote that fits in the square at that moment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I do see the trouble. Like, even being Indigenous, I'm often romanticized because it's like we once existed, and then there's like some where what's not recognized as the oppression, and the genocide and all, literally social justice is ignored. And so that's what I see when I see MLK quotes as well. It's just this, I don't want to pay attention to other things, but I just want to pay attention to what makes me feel good, right?
It makes me feel like I'm connected to something. That's what a lot of people do. They try to seek a connection, where it's like, you have this MLK quote, you've never had a Black friend, you've never had an Indigenous friend, you've never even stepped outside of, your circle your circle that was your be all and end all, which was either your family, your cousins, or the friends that came to you because of family, and you've stuck with that. You've gone through college, you've gone through university, you've gone through high school, grade school, but your circle is still white, and your circle is still entirely white. But here you are quoting Dr. Martin Luther King and quoting all the other great, the pioneers of social justice, like movements. You're quoting them, but you have no context, no concept, nowhere to base this from. So, right. I mean, then that's why I say a lot of listening is still super important, because acting without knowing is one of the most dangerous things you can do.
Right. Yeah, I always think of, whenever we act, we act based on our intentions and not thinking about the impact, which that is literally a outcome when we think about working with a sense of urgency. We're just kind of reacting versus responding. Yeah. And so like, what I've seen happen over the last 6 months.
It's always impact over intent for me. I don't care what your intent was. It's your impact over intent.
Right. I definitely don't give any fucks about intent.
You can intend to do all the good in the world that you want to do, but when you go out, it's like, people say, let's go to South Africa, or let's go to an African country, and we're going to take a kid, we're going to find this kid, but we're going to take that kid back to America and give them an American life, and pretend like that kid doesn't have a family in the, in wherever in Africa you purchased the kid from, because, gave this family a donation and they were quite happy, and now this kid is there, but we've created such a great life for this kid in America that nothing else matters out of that. And I think that's a lot of the times what they refer to as white saviorism that gets applied to to this situation here. It's like, yeah, we did great. We posted the black square. Everyone should now be happy. We've recognized everyone and we've done something to make significant change.
Mm-hmm.
But you haven't.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I always think of like me like playing frisbee with somebody and then I accidentally hit somebody, right? I didn't mean to hit you with that frisbee. That was not my intention, right? But you still did it. And now, you know, they have injuries and
And
things
now
that
you've
they,
lost a tooth with my frisbee.
right, exactly. I didn't mean to. So that day was actually quite busy for me. I don't know about for you. Did you get any like phone calls, emails? What was your day like
Um,
on June 2nd?
I had over 600 uh, instant messages, no lie, and I still have. Like, if I go back into my messages right now, they're still sitting there
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have it where every message can come in directly into my inbox.
Yeah.
So I have to vet the messages that come in because I don't have time for that crap.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still a whole ton of messages there. And people, it was a day for a lot of people just to vent, like all the things that they didn't know and they found out in that one day. They wanted to put it in my inbox and wanted me to pacify their feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there for it. I couldn't deal with it. I didn't have the emotional capacity or the emotional resources to deal with that on that day. And whether or not it was someone reaching out to say, let me offer you help. Why are you offering me help? I don't know you. We've never
Mm-hmm.
met. We've never had a conversation. What all of a sudden has spurred this thing in you that makes you want to, you know, be the kind giving soul all of a sudden?
Right. Yeah, I'm hearing like a lot of guilt, I guess, and that's kind of what I saw as well, is I feel really guilty. I haven't done anything, I haven't said anything, I need to do something. So let me just unleash on someone of color to kind of let them know that I care, that I'm here to save them, essentially, is kind of my interpretation.
Yeah. Did you get a lot of people reaching out to you based on your line of work as well?
I did, yeah. So it was just, it's been actually nonstop for me for the past 6 months. And I was already in the middle of developing the Angling for All pledge. And so it was a good time to kind of roll that out and launch that shortly after, just because it was just on the verge of being launched anyway. And I think that really was good timing for the line of work that I was in already. I've been doing this work for a little over 3 years. So and
Mhm.
my business partner's been doing this for ages, and so
Yeah.
we were ready for it. So and I just lost my job due to COVID. So I was just like, great, let's do this, and I'm really passionate about this. And I remember an organization asked for advice, and they our response was anything but an MLK quote if you want to interact. That's why I asked you about the MLK quote and how
Hmm.
you feel about that, because it was just post anything except that. And then they ended up not even posting a black square, but a picture. It was a beautiful landscape photo with the MLK quote. What are your impressions of that? Somebody posting something like that?
Sounds MLK quote. Like, if you post a landscape, like at one point I was like, why are people posting pictures, posting pretty pictures?
Yeah.
And during this time, and why, if you say you're about this, why are you posting pretty pictures? But then you catch more, what did they say? Like, you catch more bees with honey or something, or more flies with honey or something like that. And I'm figuring, if Instagram was a place for pretty pictures and
Mm-hmm.
people came to Instagram to look for the unreal reality of everyone's everyday existence, because we all take amazing photos every day of just the perfect scenery. If I could use that to draw you to the conversation, why not?
Mm-hmm.
And if the conversation behind it is genuine, post your pretty picture, relay a message, but please leave the MLK quote out of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It just happened to be that day where it was just so highly political. And, I like that what you said earlier is my existence is political, just being
Hmm.
Black. And
Hmm.
that's 100%, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely
it's I
true.
I am a walking political statement.
Yeah, yeah. And I kind of saw it as a sidestep, particularly on June 2nd.
Hmm.
Like we want to participate, but we don't want the larger audience because, you know, not everybody reads captions or, you know, quotes and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I kind of saw it as an easy performative form of action. That's what I saw from that.
Yeah.
So.
For some, I think for some of it, it was entirely performative. And like, I've seen pictures of, you know, again, me running in a field with my hand outstretched behind me and my partner managing to take my picture as my hat briefly falls off my head, you know,
Yeah, your fedora.
and an MLK quote.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
all depends on what the impact of that intent was
Right.
behind your posts.
Yeah.
And I think it became a little bit different where if it was, for me, if it was someone from the Black community or making that post with a pretty picture, because I don't think our existence should be in pain. And I
Yeah.
don't think pain should be the only thing the only way we move.
Mm-hmm.
Because I said to someone the other day, my joy carries a higher price value to me than my pain. And I don't want to ever be reduced to just a painful existence because I have a happy life and I have a happy existence. And I want people to see that. And I want people to see, you know, that despite whatever it is that we're going through, there's still joy and there's still a need to find and exist in that space of joy.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed as that day went on, there was a lot of Black folks posting about their joy because it was
Mm-hmm.
like, this is not new. And I am choosing to not be in this dark square with you, but I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
celebrate my existence of having a joyful life, a happy life.
I
So,
mean, we out here being happy. Why not? Like, I mean, yes, we are angry, we're upset, and we've been angry and upset for ages. So, I mean, it's not like we weren't angry and upset in December of last year, or angry
yep.
and upset when they killed Tamir Rice, or angry and upset when they killed Trayvon Martin, and not angry or upset when, you know, the idiot that killed Trayvon Martin got to walk because he was protecting his community. We were all
Right.
upset. We were all angry. We've been upset. So why should your black square now prompt us to be even more angry? Why should
Right.
your black square call us to be even more, you know, focused on anger and focused on, because, and I look at it this way too, is like when you pull us into anger, that doesn't reflect on you, it reflects on us because we are now the angry black people who have no reason to be angry, right?
Mm-hmm.
You did your part and you made it so perfect and you made it so happy for everyone. Why are they angry? We just acknowledge them. You know, we
Right.
just showed them that we care through posting a black square. Whatever do they have to be angry for? So
Right.
again, the mask, the black square was another form of I look at it as another form of an oppressive mask. That's all it
Mm-hmm.
was, because you're pulling me into anger. You're pulling me into a place where now I keep on seeing these black squares and it's pushing me more to be angry even more. And I'm gonna act, but I'm gonna be called, you know, the angry black woman or the angry black person or the violent black person simply because you've
Mm-hmm.
spurred me to anger based on your actions, but I'm not allowed to react.
Right. Right. Exactly. Wow. Yeah, I did I think I went through all the emotions as well, including anger and seeing, like, you can literally see, especially in the fly fishing community, the literal black square, and anything before that is all white faces. And
Mm-hmm.
then some of them, you know, after that Tuesday was either stock images or they actually started trying.
Dude, did you our shared experience with a certain organization, like a
Yeah.
couple experience with the certain organizations
Yeah.
where, you know, one where they grabbed someone off the street who's never fly fished in their entire existence, overdressed them, over outfitted them, threw them on a river for a photo op.
Right. Yep.
You know.
I know. I know. If you follow major folks in the fly fishing world, it's quite obvious. But maybe to us, because we're so used to laughing at this, and you know, performance can only go so long, and so I'm just waiting for this kind of to die out a little bit, and they run out of stock images or things to.
But now
Um,
they'll have more images because we've been posting our joy in these spaces for so long, but they'll
yeah,
just use the images and won't pay us for those images. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's a risk. Oh, okay. So let's actually dive into a little bit more into the fly fishing community. I know that you do a lot of work in the outdoor industry as a whole, and I often think these two get separate, but to me, it's kind of one and the same. There's the umbrella of the outdoor industry, and fly fishing is under that. So, but if we kind of pull it back down, since our audiences and we're fly fishers, we have that in common, let's kind of focus a little bit on that. So, what would you say to companies that are saying, um, what is that like? I know that we talked a little bit about you being political, but what does that actually mean when a company says we don't want to get political? What do you have to say to that?
When you say you don't want to political, means you don't want to engage, you don't want to do anything. That's simple. That's all it is. You don't want to engage with the walking example of what political looks like. You don't want to engage. You don't want to step outside of your comfort zone. You don't want to upset your customer base. If we pull up on an organization like Sims, when we posted, when they posted in whenever they posted, I can't remember, about their support for Black Lives Matter, and the racist vitriol that came out of that moment. And it was just like, yeah, now your customers or your client base is upset because you didn't serve them today. They came into your restaurant and the meal that they wanted prepared, you didn't prepare that for them, right? And that's what came out of that. And I saw a lot of anger from the client bases that they support, a lot of anger from, yeah, just a lot of anger, a lot of white supremacy, and a lot of hate, and a lot of everything, without Sims or any other organization stepping up to say, we're here. We weren't meant just to serve you, and now we've realized our mistake. Here's what we're going to do. There was none of that. It was more of a, we're just going to let everyone run rampant in the comment section, say whatever they want to say. And when they say something that's a little bit too far to the left, we're going to delete it. There was so much of that. There were so many organizations just deleting the posts when, either they were deleting the posts of people calling them out because they're not saying anything, or that comment just went a little bit too off brand for them, that they now had to do damage control. And a lot of it too was, what I found out afterwards was that a lot of the people who were monitoring these social media accounts were actually people of color who had to deal with the stress of reading those comments to actually go through it to figure out what to remove
Wow.
or respond to.
Right. What I'm hearing is like two things. One of them is, not particularly just this, it's this company and everyone in the outdoor fly fishing industry. It's taking responsibility for your actions, whether or non-action, right? Owning that you're not going to do something, or if you're going to do something, then have some responsibility for that. And, there was no response of, we see you, this is the right thing to do, right? Which is to let our Black, Indigenous, people of color customer base and, followers know that we support you and we see you. There was literally none of that, and so that was like a really big opportunity, I felt like. And, like, yes, you can be performative, but also making sure that you're following up with action. I've had a few companies, post this, hey, we're in solidarity, but I was like, are you though? Because I haven't seen anything from you before. So what are you actually doing from this day forward? Some of them actually signed the Angling for All pledge. They are, doing some heavy lifting. They're doing some work, and they're kind of remaining silent right now because they're still doing work. They're not
They're
just
listening. They're
exactly.
listening and working. And
Yeah.
that's what's important. Like, social media has given everyone this whole idea that everything that you do needs to be up in the front. And
Right.
that's where a lot of the least amount of action comes from, because your post, everybody's so easy to appease with a quick visual, right?
Yeah.
But when you actually go behind the scene, what's the work that's being done? Is there anything, is there anything real coming out of the, yes, we support you? What have you done to show that support? Where has your organization gone over the last 6 months? What does your board of directors look like now versus what it did on June 2nd? You know what I mean? what are the changes that you've made to actually show that you really are trying to support more people getting into fly fishing or getting to fishing, period.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's okay that you don't have a diverse board right now. Just own that you don't. That's all I want to see.
But own it, and that you're making steps to changing it, not owning it and sitting in the conversation that this is what we've always done, or these things were grandfathered to us. I don't care what was grandfathered to you. You can grandfather in racism, you can grandfather in misogyny, you can grandfather in homophobia, you can grandfather in any kind of, ignorance can be grandfathered in. How are you going to work to change it? Like, I don't want to hear that you've had to, abide by these rules and these laws. Companies are built so that they can change. Companies are built so that they progress. And, progress doesn't have to look like a financial amount. Progress can look like you actually taking real tangible steps to make sure over the long term that you're affecting change.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And it's okay to have a strategic plan, right? And it's okay to have steps and whatnot. And, I think like the overall issue with all of that is they want to see it now. They want to like perform now, right? But they don't have anything to back it up with. So
yeah, quick fixes. And they don't want to engage. A lot of them don't want to, when you look at it, a lot of companies still don't want to engage the people who will help them make change, or they don't want to, engage the people who know the real work that needs to be done. And they don't, a lot of organizations and the people who run them don't want to use that mirror to look at themselves. It's fine to pass it off to everyone else to say that they're doing such a horrible job with this, but we have made steps. We've created a DEI, branch or whatever it is in our company. We're doing it. What are they doing? But not realizing that the whole time you're sitting there saying, yes, I'm doing this, that company has moved so far ahead of where you've gone, sitting there patting yourself on the back with one hand and trying to work with just one finger doing something else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The thing that I see is once there is a diversity department, or even I see it getting siloed and pushed to HR. And this type of work is not that technical type of challenge. It's really, it needs to be, everyone needs to take ownership and responsibility for being inclusive, from, the top of the top to the line level staff to everyone in between. And if that's not happening, look at your culture, right? Like that is literally what is happening in your culture and why you're not seeing change. So this is a cultural shift that needs to happen, and it's not up to one person to change an entire culture.
But then the funny thing is, when people say they are going to HR was built by the company for the company. Right. So you're gonna complain to the kid's mom about the kid's actions when the kid's mom was the one who raised him to be the asshole. like really?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
When companies are saying we don't want to polarize our customers, or we don't want any controversy within our customers, or losing any customers, what kind of response do you have to say to that?
But why not?
Yeah.
When do I not matter? Does my dollar not matter? Because again, and I keep on saying Sims because that's where I bought all my fly fishing gear. That's everything I have for fly, down to my gloves, they were from Sims. My boots are from Sims, my waders are from Sims, some of my equipment are from Sims. But when I went to Sims during that moment where I don't know why I thought I even could go there to see something that made sense, because again, the fly fishing industry it is polarized in who it serves. It is polarized in, everything that it does. The industry says this is for old white men. And if it's not for old white men, it's now for scantily clad bikini fit babes are the only people who are allowed to fish. That's all it says. That's all the fishing, and that's where the line stops, right? But then when it comes down to conversations, like real conversations, or you fish, I fish, Where do we see ourselves in this picture?
Right.
Do you see yourself? Is the view not polarized in that sense already? Is it not a very linear view of what the fishing industry should look like? I
Right.
mean, there's really nothing to say that there's any difference or that any difference is trying to be made. 6 months later, it's still the same imagery. It's still the same, old white guy on a boat in in New Zealand or somewhere, fishing the most exotic places because they can't afford that is what it looks like. It's still elite, it's still super exclusive, it's still super not welcoming, based on imagery, based on conversation, based on who gets to be a part of this conversation. Who's, you and I sat through conversations with fishing organizations that turned into nothing.
Right.
Yeah, we've been there. We've lived it.
Yeah. Lived it with
We're not just shooting from shit. We're actually coming from somewhere because we have the experience.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with my response to we don't want to divide our customer base. It's like you've been divisive for so long because people like me have never been included in any of your organizations or even the industry, right? This has already been polarized. We've already been segregated out of the industry. Why are you not choosing to include us? Plus bring everybody else too, right? This is not an either or issue.
No, but the thing is, like, even if you like you've been doing this for so long and you've been polarized for so long that you think this is normal.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
now you don't want to disrupt your normal. If you think about it, like, your normal is everything that you've seen before June 2nd, or your
Right.
normal is everything that you've seen before. And that's why your customers are upset. They're not upset because, they saw someone you posted last week. They're
Yeah.
upset because all of a sudden you use the word black with a capital B in your statement. And that's like mind blowing. Like, why are you even capitalizing black? Why are you even putting a black person on your page? We don't need to have the conversation about fishing is never about race. And we don't bring race into this fishing conversation. When I go out, I just want to fish. I never want to have to think about anything else, right? And if I don't see anyone here that doesn't, you know, that if someone's here that doesn't look like me, well, good for them. They figured out how to fish on their own. But I'll tell them that they shouldn't hold the fish like this. They shouldn't use this kind of fly. Their rod's too cheap. The line that they're using is wrong. The waders that they have is wrong. The shoes are wrong. And they probably shouldn't just be out here in the safe first space because it's not very safe for you.
They're loud. They're in my hole. Now they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna post on Instagram and everything's gonna get worked and whatnot.
Oh, they're gonna start doing that young whippersnapper thing and geotagging. They're gonna geotag where that location where I caught that fish.
On stolen Indigenous lands.
But no, but that's my land because my family has rights and titles to that land. So that's my land. This has
Yeah, well,
nothing to do with it being
how did you
indigenous
get that
land.
title, by the way?
Mm.
At what price, right?
Yep. You want to come in and fish the river that I own? You want to step into the river? You can't step on the bottom of the river. You might be able to float the top of the water, but you can't touch the bottom of the river because that's my land. It's connected to my land. It's connected to my ancestors' land, so you can't touch it. No, like literally that conversation about the whole river piece and not being able, you can float atop of the water, but you can't step on the you can't fish the bottom of the river because you might drag fish from the bottom of the river. That's on my land. You can't, if your boat comes ashore, I have all rights to shoot you because you're on my land.
I've been
Dude,
threatened before.
it's a freaking river. A river runs through it. Like, how how do you own it? You didn't come, Christopher Columbus didn't take it from you, did he? Is that who Chris Columbus took it from? Your family? Just tell me.
Am I missing something here?
I don't know. Were you the ones who had your whole life up and thrown out, and all your ancestors were killed, and all those things to make this land fishable for everyone except everyone.
I want to move on to another saying that I hear often, and I like to hear your response, is we don't have the budget, or we don't have a budget for a diversity, equity, inclusion position or any training.
What is your assumption of what a budget is?
Mm-hmm.
How did you come to the conclusion that even before we had this conversation that you don't have a budget? Why do you have a budget for your partner's golf trip to somewhere else every year, fully paid, at the most exclusive resort with the most exclusive travel line, or the most exclusive airline in first class to go there, but you don't have a budget for something that's important in changing the culture of your organization? It's not that you don't have the budget, you don't have the heart, you don't have the understanding, and you just care not to care about doing anything to create change. So it's not that you don't have the budget. I'm sure you have the budget. If you are operating, you have a budget to commit to doing work. That's how I look at it. I don't care what size you are. If you're operating and you're making a profit at the end of the year, you have a budget.
Yeah, it's just what line item goes where, right?
Yep. How do you shuffle your money around? When you don't want to pay taxes, where do you shuffle it to?
Right. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Figure it out. You have a budget. Make your
Yeah.
budget work for you. If you're serious and you're committed to actually doing work and creating work, and sometimes there are people who will help you. Like, the conversation doesn't always have to be about we don't have a budget. When it comes to smaller organizations, don't disrespect me, first of all, by telling me you don't have a budget before we start a conversation. That is you entirely telling me that you've made a whole bunch of assumptions before you even started this conversation, and you have no real intent on doing any work, but you just want me to sit here and either listen to you pour your heart and soul out to me tell you how to fix it, and then you say bye and do nothing about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I've seen some creativity over the last 6 months, and this was already a company well into their journey and doing the work already, is shuffling money around, instead of giving money to a certain ad campaign, via another social platform, they've actually shuffled that into paying for diversity and inclusion training for their staff. So yeah, I would agree that there is a budget. I've worked in marketing and sales before, and there was constantly a budget.
There's always a budget.
We got to do these awesome marketing campaigns, and some of them, I would say more than that, we had no way to calculate the actual ROI, and it was also like a lazy company anyway. But we got to spend all this money on travel, and but yet they would always say, well, we don't have any money for initiatives for diversity and inclusion.
Dude, you're buying coffee mugs, pens, and pins.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They all go in the garbage. Nobody uses your stupid jump drive anyways. No one drinks from your coffee mug. Like, put it where it actually makes some sense.
Yeah. When I did marketing tours, I would always get all the swag, and then I would bring it back to the office, and I had this big old like treasure chest, and then we always did like these stupid little giveaways and stuff. Anyway, it was very cheesy and very funny.
It legit is, you're just buying into trash where that money could go somewhere else. Because again, half the times the pen goes missing on the first day that you receive it. The coffee mug never gets used because everyone already has their personal relationship with their coffee mug. And that tote bag, it's not going to get used.
Yeah, right.
Unless it's big enough to carry all my groceries in it at once, so I don't have to go back downstairs, then maybe, but otherwise it's not getting used.
Yeah. I remember also with this particular company, and Sydney and I talk about this a lot. She's my business partner, and she was the diversity and inclusion manager, and I was the marketing manager. And my budget was pretty big, and so it was up to me. I thought it would benefit everybody if I partnered with the diversity and inclusion manager on marketing campaigns. And so we would combine our forces and ideas and whatnot. And so I'd come up with this great plan of like, okay, we're going to do this. And Sydney's like, well, I don't have the budget for it. And I'm like, well, how do you not have a budget for this?
Budget.
Like mine is like, we're just shelling out the cash. Right. And so,
Let it rain.
yeah, that was probably an awakening experience of where money gets shuffled and really obvious once we finally got down to it. We like our marketing director wrote a $50,000 check like no big deal, right? But that he also pushed for the diversity and inclusion manager to pay it, but I was like, literally has a budget of maybe 5,000, where ours is well over
too much money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely 6 figures for sure. So,
but even like I look at the fly fishing industry, like a good fly rod, just the rod alone, we're not talking reels. A good fly rod alone can run you well over $2,000. Like, let's be honest here. Yeah. But you're making all that money, and you claim you have a small operation, but you have a small operation. You're probably manufacturing in China, where you're paying little to nothing for these things to be manufactured. Your markup is way up here, and then your resale value is a whole other thing. And you have a whole bunch of other ways that you're getting money into your company. If you don't have resources, financial resources, whose pocket is really fat out of your company? Because I really need to figure that out. Because your budget for DEI work is going somewhere that it shouldn't be going, and you can't afford to get it done. You can't afford to hire the professional. You can't afford to sit in on a conference. You can't afford to have someone come in and sit with your organization and help you figure out what's wrong and how to fix it. It's affordable.
Right. Yeah. Another thing is they don't want to, they're so like Conan, what you were saying is they're used to the comfort and familiarity. So to think critically and to think creatively of shifting budgets is really difficult, because this is just the way it's always been. And we have our fiscal plans already, at certain quarters and whatnot. So get ahead of it, right? Like if you're already seeing a problem now, that you're going to have to do your planning and budgeting already for, few years from now. Like, why not get on it now? Why not start shuffling and looking into that now? So
but
it's
a part
okay.
of it is like, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying, it's the part of it is too, is like, who's holding you accountable now? Who's going to hold you accountable when you say you don't have the budget? Who's there to step up and push back to say, yes, you have the budget? And that's where it comes down to, again, if the people who are in management and have power and have clout and have room to make change aren't willing to speak up, then you're forever going to be grandfathering in the same ideas, the same lack of action that brought you here in the first place. Nothing's ever going to change. And that's where it's important, again, if your board doesn't reflect the future that you want, how are you working now as an organization to make that change going forward? Because a lot of companies never want to rattle their board of directors, right? And if your board of directors is comfortable and happy where they are and they're making their money, and for them everything looks rosy up at the top, if no one's showing them that it really isn't rosy and it really isn't pretty, who's going to push them to help make change?
Right. And that's the importance of diversity on your teams and hiring other folks of color and representation.
And it doesn't have to be, when I look at it, it's like, people are like, oh, you have to hire someone Black to speak on Black issues. You have to hire someone Indigenous to speak on Indigenous issues. You have to hire someone POC to speak. For one, nobody can speak for everyone's issues, because that in and of itself, again, is a problem. Right. Figure out, and that's why you need to have different people with different perspectives coming in and giving you different ways. Because I guarantee you, a lot of the times, if someone's coming into an organization and all they're coming in to do is represent one group of people, you're going to still again end up creating segregation by helping that one set of people, or helping that one group of people, and everyone's still sitting out like, oh, so what happened to us in that whole BIPOC piece? Where am I? Because it happens right now. There's a lot of organizations that they say they represent BIPOC, but when you look, you see no indigenous or Black representation in there whatsoever. They're happy with the white passing individuals or those who align closely to whiteness to make the decisions for everyone else. And that fixes nothing, because at the end of the day, again, we all have our own biases, right? We all have our, and biases play a lot into how people act and to the resolutions, the things that they see. And if you're not in a position where you're seeing anything that needs to change, how are you going to tell someone in an organization that you need to change something?
Right. Yeah, totally agree. Another thing that I hear companies, and I want your reaction to this, is we are doing everything we can.
Who told you that? You are not. The moment you say we're doing everything we can, it's a simple indicator of you're doing absolutely nothing, because you've already limited your ability and limited your capacity to do things by saying you're doing everything you can. And if that is in your head, you're not inspired to make any change or make anything different. You're just going to sit. We're doing everything we can. It doesn't speak to growth. It speaks to you being over on this side of the line, and you're going to stay on this side of the line because everything here, no matter what brought you to this point where you're now hitting a wall, it was okay for you, and that's all you're going to do. So anyone over here, you don't matter. We're not taking the wall down. We're going to continue operating over here because that's all we can do. That's all we're interested in doing. And that's all our budget is going to allow us to do. You can sit over here and so worry about what you want us to do, but we're not moving. We're not coming over. So either you figure out how to jump over this wall to get over here, or you just sit here and be with nothing.
Right. Who told you that? I love it. That's the perfect response.
Who told you that? It sounds like someone calling themselves an ally. Who told you that? Oh, that allyship title.
So true. That's a good comparison. You cannot be a self-proclaimed ally.
No, my friend, you are not. The moment you proclaim yourself to be an ally is the moment you have failed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So what else do you see that's like problematic within, either derived from Blackout Tuesday or the, things that we've seen in the fly fishing industry when it comes to these things and of what we talked about of what organizations say?
There's still just a lot of the unwillingness to change, or the unwillingness to acknowledge that there's something wrong, and the unwillingness to actually push towards making that change. Because I mean, the black squares were posted, the pledges were signed. What are you going to do now? And I look at it like this, like, to me, you don't have to make a visible proclamation of what you're doing, but you went ahead and you posted that black square and you made it visible. So now we want to see accountability. You posted the black square. You called yourself out. We didn't call you. Yes. You went ahead and called yourself out. So now that you've called yourself out, you're accountable to us. Yeah. You're accountable to that community that you said was a part of your black square, and you're going to make a change for it. Dude, we've all been screenshotting. We've all been copying your text. We've all been copying the saving the emails that you've been sending to us, saving the DMs that you were sending. They're all saved. You know what I mean? So you're now accountable to us because you called yourself out. You were so ridden with guilt that we didn't have to come to you. You went ahead and you posted a black square either performatively or because you realized that, oh crap, there are really other people in the world other than myself, or there are other people than white people in this world. Now you've realized that, and you posted that black square, and now we're going to hold you accountable to the actions that you posted in that black square, or that very well-crafted video montage that you did of every person of color that you've ever served in your organization. You must now be accountable to all of us who look like those people in those ads, because you said you were going to do different for us. You were going to do right by us, but you ain't doing right. Yeah, it's time for you to get out and do the right thing. That's all it is. Do the right thing. That's all. That's all we want you to do. We're not asking you to sell, all the cows off of your ranch. Like, sell a couple cows and donate some of the money. Right. Go out into a community and see how get up from around your desk as a CEO of an organization. Move from the back, move from behind your desk, and maybe one day go out into a community and say, yeah, I said I would get all this work done, or I had this money set aside and said I was going to get work done, but I don't know who needs help. I have no one in here who can show me how I need help. Maybe I need to go out and immerse myself in these communities that I want to help for a little bit. Find someone who knows something about these communities or what their needs are, and work with them to help to make that change. Because I guarantee you as an individual who has never done anything, who's never had any experiences, who never knows anything, who's never had to live a day wanting anything, what you think a community wants is entirely different than what that community actually needs to exist, to survive, and to be successful.
Right. Let's talk about gear and why we choose to purchase from a company or choose not to. Because you mentioned earlier you got all your stuff from Sims, and then you've seen these problematic actions, right, or behaviors. And I could be putting words in your mouth, but so when it comes to purchasing new gear, do you have a different perspective now, or like how do you go about choosing gear these days and who to buy from?
Well, the fact that I already spent my last $2,000 buying gear, I'm not buying anymore.
What if I
No.
was like, hey, I really need to buy
Yeah.
XYZ?
I actually have had the conversation with someone. There's another a BIPOC angler that I met here in Toronto that I just happened to meet her walking. We went up to the store, and it was that moment of, like the bro nod. It's just like, I see you, you see me. We're
Oh yeah,
both here.
there's like 3 of us in Crested Butte. Yeah.
Yep. So we did yeah, we totally did the thing at the door. And then we just started talking. And you know how it's hella weird to talk to people now during COVID, because it's like people aren't real anymore. So we did that talking thing. And then I told her about my social media page. And then we started talking on there, and we ended up going fly fishing together last weekend. And we're going to go again, last weekend or the weekend before. And we're going again on Saturday to
Sometime
go fly
before
fishing.
now.
Yeah, so that time over there. Um, and we're going fly fishing again. And I did tell her, like, when we were speaking, I did mention to this person that I'm not a fan of purchasing equipment from this specific company, simply because of the way their whole claim for allyship worked out, based on the conversations that we've had with them and the way that they presented, and the fact that nothing has even worked to change, or we've seen no actions, we've heard nothing, we've seen this company revert right back to where they were pre-June 2nd. It was a conversation that I had with this person about my feelings for them, and about my 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 me not wanting to purchase from them for that specific reason. But then I'm also caught up in the conundrum of the gear that I bought. It was super expensive, and I don't want to get rid of it, and I don't want to not wear it. But then do I take pictures on Instagram and only take from my neck up when I'm fly fishing, just to not create free marketing? Like, or even advertise that I'm selling stuff, that I'm wearing this company's brand that I don't support, or I don't have any real I don't align with their values, and I don't align with the way they present or try to claim that they're representing the BIPOC community. It's a hard space to be in, to be honest, especially when there really aren't a lot of options when it comes to like purchasing waders, for one, or purchasing boots.
Right.
And I know, like, when I look at, for one company, like the work that I've seen, and I'll say from Orvis, because that's all I've really seen in the outdoor industry in terms of fly fishing, I've seen them putting in work, or I've seen where they've actually made, and this could totally be me just basing my opinion off of social media presence again, but I've seen where they've tried to work with other individuals in the BIPOC industry, wow, other individuals in the BIPOC community, to actually, but to actually do things that actually created, to make it look like they wanted to create this change. They didn't have to make, like, massive statements or massive, online social media or social media campaigns to say that they're doing the work. But if they're doing the work and they're engaging with the people and the visuals are there, I can't go off anything but what I'm seeing,
Right.
right? I don't know their internal operations, but when I see nothing, or when I see all I see is performative, then I don't want to associate myself with you. And every time I put on that waiter, it's a reminder for me. And every time I pull it up and I see the symbol on the leg of the waiter, it's a reminder to me of what happened in June. It's a reminder to me of the the support that you gave to the racists that you supported for so long in your comment section, and the way that I, as an individual who spent my money on purchasing your equipment, was berated and made to feel like my life didn't matter in your comment section when I asked you for accountability
Right.
based on the fact that you said you were going to be accountable but did nothing.
Yeah. 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 I completely agree. And I consciously make choices to not purchase gear from companies that I don't see doing work.
Mm-hmm.
And the BIPOC community, we talk, right? You had mentioned like we share screenshots. I get a lot of stuff in my
Mm-hmm.
email inbox of just looking out for each other, and we talk and whatnot. So I definitely make a conscious effort to purchase from companies that I know that are doing the work. They might not be perfect, but I at least know that they're trying. And I actively don't seek out gear from companies that are afraid to speak out, and or have let racist comments kind of run and rule their accounts.
Yeah.
They're giving those people, they're giving racists power, giving
Mm-hmm.
racism power. And why would I want to purchase from a company that does that? you
Yeah.
know
And
like
it's just, again, because it's
or
such a small community, like the community of BIPOC anglers, especially female BIPOC anglers, is so small that
right.
across the world we probably almost know each other. And this is like in the entire world. So, you know, we probably all know each other through social media. But at the same time, we're going to talk. We're going to share ideas. We're going to have conversation. We're going to speak about the things that we don't see, the things that we see, or who shows support or who's not showing support to us, right? It's not like we're going to just be like, go buy it just because it's blah, 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 blah. No, I'm probably going to tell you, don't buy it because it's blah, 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 blah. Instead, and in a space where I think we have the capacity to be impactful in changing what the fishing industry looks like, or especially for women and women of color, I think it's important that when companies step up and say they're going to do, that they actually do, because again, we do talk. And on and I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound really horrible, but I'm not apologizing for it. Old white men are going to die. They're going to die, and they won't be able to take care of the fisheries habitats. They won't be able to take care of the water. They won't be able to take care of the land. And if you constantly tell them that they're the only ones that matter, you have a bunch of people who end up forming no relationship to we're going fishing, but are we really forming a relationship to the land? Because we don't see ourselves there. We don't have a space there. We're just going out. And when we have, a space to say, we know 6 BIPOC women who fish, that's 6 BIPOC women who know 6 other BIPOC women that they can bring into the fishing industry and give them, tell them what's good and what's not good. And if you're the brand that's sitting on our not good side, we're going to tell them that your stuff isn't good, and we're going to influence them not to buy it.
Yeah, this year alone I've taught a good handful of women of color how to fish for their first time this year. And
Mm-hmm.
they do have money also. Like they have really good jobs. They are in a capacity, they're independent, and they're in the capacity for rods, waders, boots, everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely advise them and steer them of, here's a great brand and this is why, and you would appreciate this is because, their BIPOC efforts, their conservation efforts. It's a whole package for me in order to spend that type of money on a certain brand or a certain company. And especially with this, especially this year in the U.S. in our political climate, there are times where my eyes will gloss over when I look at the logo. All I'm seeing is Trump 2020.
Yep. that
Or
I,
I'm seeing that like 55% of white women have voted for Trump, which is up from last year. Like that's
mhm,
literally what I see. I don't see your logo. That's all I look at. And that's what
mhm.
I advise the people of color that I teach, right? It's like you don't want to mess with that brand because they support racism because they are silent about it.
Yeah, and it's you know, a part of the importance of that is that we're gonna look out for each other.
Yeah.
Like no matter what they tell you, and no matter how they tell you that we don't talk, we don't support each other, that's a part of the story that they want to tell you to make us look like we're not worth investing in, right?
Totally.
We're gonna talk, we're going to tell each other that your flies suck, no matter how you make them and sell them, and you only sell them for this, or your waiters suck, or your boots suck, or your rods suck, or your line quality is horrible, or you
Mhm.
don't really need to buy that expensive tippet that doesn't even have any purpose anyways.
Which Rebecca will change your mind, by the way.
No, I'm a tippet believer. I've learned to become a tippet believer.
Thanks.
It's yeah. Someone taught me about tippet,
All
Erica.
about that. Oh yeah, it's all about that suppleness.
It just moves differently, Erica.
Yeah.
The fish like the way the tippet moves.
So supple.
Just supple and just moves well.
I was at a fly shop the other day and I was like, oh my God, I just learned about suppleness. And he's like, there's some words that just sound really weird coming out of people's mouths. It's like,
Yeah, but it's everything that you mentioned with like fly fishing. I mean, every fly that you tie has like a horrible name attached to it that
oh my
was
God.
rooted in misogyny and
Yeah. Oh yeah.
sexism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
For sure. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a whole other episode, by the way. Believe me. It's
Oh my
almost
gosh.
like the mountain project, right? That
Yeah.
of all those rock ascents, are racist and just derogatory towards
Hmm.
females, and
I
and
totally think you could do a whole episode on fly names, on
I've
horrible
been
fly names.
oh yeah, I mean that was probably within the first 3 months I started fly fishing. I was just like, what is this? And I actually had a conversation with one of the gals that I taught to fish about that earlier this summer. It was just like, yeah, sorry, but this is the reality that we kind of have to be oppressed in at this time unless it changes. And think about, bringing that up, and then I just hear the responses already, oh, snowflakes, and this is just the way it's always been. It's like, if you
It's
want
been
to
grandfathered.
yeah. His grandfather did. Anyway, but if we're looking at conservation efforts, right, and like sustaining this sport, right, and protecting our lands and our waters and making this a space for everybody, like, yeah, you're gonna have to evolve. Part of that evolution is changing and getting rid of misogyny. That's not okay anymore.
The thing is, a lot of people still exist in that mental space
Yeah.
where, you know, everyone else is subservient to them, so they're going to stay in that space, and everybody has to be subject to what their thought processes are, right? I mean,
That's
thinking
literally
about
white supremacy.
mhm, thinking about conservation efforts, it's like who who else who else gets to speak on conservation when it comes to fisheries?
Definitely not indigenous people.
Dude, if you don't get to speak on it, and I saw even when with COVID, and which lake was it again that they
Which is a
oh, the popular fly fishing lake where everybody wanted to go to catch
pyramid.
yes, and the anger and the upset white guys that were
The right to access, that feeling of
dude, I was just like, are you kidding me right now?
so gross.
It was honestly, it was one of the most, like, beyond all the other things that we saw in the fly fishing industry, I think that was the most upsetting. And in terms of the language that was being used under those posts, the 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 entitlement, the this is ours, this is not for how people, how can indigenous people say they own, or sorry, how can native people say they own the waters? Boom. Just yeah, yeah.
It
But
was
then
a
again,
horror. and a vulnerable population to COVID as well. So you've already done enough here as far as your colonization and genocide. Like,
You
we don't need more of that on
stay
this
over
vulnerable,
there.
like the land stewards that are actually protecting your waters that you want to fish on. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I that was a whole other fly fishing introduction to fly fishing and fly fishing bonus and fly fishing entitlement that was just like, whoa. Y'all ain't playing today.
mm, yeah. Ugh,
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
let's move into have you seen an organization that is doing well? And
I
I'm
don't know
using,
what the meter for well is.
I was just gonna say, and that depends on your definition of well.
I don't know what the well scale looks like, to be honest. And if I'm going to use
Well, walk me through that process of like, what do you think that looks like? Because I probably have a different definition than you do. So,
okay, tell me yours first, and then we can tell me what's your definition. What's your definition of doing well?
okay, I see an organization starting to listen, and then they're starting to put money where their mouth is, which is also taking action.
It's pretty much the same thing that I saw and that I thought well would be like. It's the listening and the listening. I think one piece I would add to that is the asking,
Mm,
asking what is needed
mm-hmm,
versus just finding
mm.
a cause to put money into. Yeah, figuring. I think that's one of the big pieces that's missing for me is
And I
that
think
there's
people actually get that confused. So, what does that look like?
so it's not you coming in and saying we have this money and you can only use it this way because
Mm-hmm.
our mandate determines that you have to spend this money in this capacity for it to
Mm-hmm.
make for it to be considered impactful from our organization's perspective, right? It's not you coming in and saying we're going to give you $5,000 and this $5,000 must be spent buying waiters, but they must only be spent buying waiters from our company and they must be posted on social media with our logo showing or our brand showing. The
Mm-hmm.
organization didn't ask for you to come in and tell them and use them as a marketing campaign because
Mm-hmm.
all you're doing now is telling me you want to use me for marketing to make you look like you have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, or you've committed to doing work with diverse populations, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not you saying, you know what, we have $5,000. We're going to donate this to you as an organization for you to spend it how your organization best
Mm-hmm.
sees fit. We they have all right to ask for accountability for that $5,000. I don't. You can ask for how the $5,000 is spent, but don't tell me I need to spend it how you want me to spend it and to spend it back in your organization. It's just like a company giving you a gift card as a holiday present.
Mm-hmm.
This is you didn't give me anything because that
Yeah.
money comes right back into your store. At the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, all you did was give me a gift card. Maybe I'm going to use it. Maybe I'm not going to use it. The money didn't leave your company. The money is still there. You can write that off at some point to say, oh, well, they didn't spend it. Money's still back here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you came in and you said, what do you think that we could give to you to develop a fly fishing program, or how can we help you build a fly fishing program? And a lot of it too, sometimes it's not even the cash.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we need resources that are not we need resources that are not only made out from money. Human
Mm-hmm.
resources, come in and volunteer your time to teach. We're in fly fishing. A lot of kids have never even seen fly fishing but on television, and even if they've seen it on television, they don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, reach out to a community organization and ask them if they'd be interested in teaching people to fly fish. It doesn't have to be youth, because I find we get so hung up on just a youth population that we end up leaving a whole bunch of people out of conversations that need to happen. And that's why for Brown Girl Outdoor World, I'm not youth focused, because
Mm-hmm.
someone has to educate the educators who never had a chance to get that education in the first place, right? Because they were busy working 4 or 5 jobs and taking care of families, or their parents were busy working 4 or 5 jobs and taking care of families. So they didn't know about this stuff. As a company, ask how you can come in now and help them to learn and to find a place out there in the outdoors, if it's in fishing, even if it's in a hiking company, or a company that sells hiking gear. How can we help you? That's all you need to ask. Don't tell me you're just going to do this, but ask me how you can help me to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautifully said, because I see that happening a lot of that, right? Or tag us, or
Mm-hmm.
it's very tokenized, it's very superficial, it's
Mm-hmm.
performative, and it doesn't serve the need of the community that actually needs something, right? Communities know what they need,
Yeah.
right? So it's just listening and responding.
But also because and learn to be okay with your failure.
Yeah.
Learn to be okay with your rejection. If you go into
Mhm.
a community, if you go in a community and they say they don't want your help, be
Mhm.
okay with backing off. Be
Yeah.
okay with not being pushy. Be okay with not feeling rejected or taking it personal. But you have never come into this community before today to say you're going to offer help. We don't
Mhm.
trust you. That's simply it. And once there's no trust, there's nothing that's going to happen. And if your
Yeah.
track record before has said everything that we shouldn't trust you, and all of
Mhm.
a sudden you're going to say, oh, no, 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 no. Trust me. Here, little kid, I have candy. Come into my truck with me. We ain't trusting you. That's all it
Right.
is. That's all it seems like right now. It's like, hey, kid, we have candy. Come with me. I'm not
Yeah.
going to harm you. But we don't know that because you've
Right.
never done anything otherwise than harm everybody else. So why are we trusting you?
Yep.
That's probably a really bad analogy as a parent, by the way.
But it's like, I feel like I was just approached a couple weeks ago on that. It definitely felt like we got off candy. Like,
Yeah,
why don't you want to work with us? Because we have these resources. We
yeah.
have the means to do this project with you. Like, why don't you want to just jump on board? And I'm looking at them like, yo, your van ain't got no windows.
No windows. The driver side and passenger side windows. The only two windows that you have are tinted black. I'm sorry, I'm not coming in.
I don't trust
I'm out.
it.
I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Stop
And they
driving slowly beside me.
And they had very specific asks too. So it was
Uh-huh.
definitely on their agenda, on their
Uh-huh.
timing, and it
Yeah.
was like, nope.
Yeah, that's and if you're in it to make impact, that whole, sprint thing, that 100-meter dash that you're trying to do, it's
Mm,
not going to get you any results. And if you're really committed to changing, it's going to be for the long haul and you're going to be uncomfortable for a very long time because think about how long you've been comfortable for. You
yeah.
can't undo that in one session.
Nope.
You can't undo that in one PowerPoint presentation, right?
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
Shameless
All right.
plug here. I just gave you a spot to plug yourself here, Erica.
Well, that was my next question. I was gonna let you do it for me. So, what suggestions do you have for a company that doesn't know where to start?
I mean, totally. If you're in like the Crested Butte area, there's a company called Real Consulting.
Tell me more.
No, but definitely reach out to people who know the work that you need to do
Yeah.
because there are definitely organizations out there, companies, there are, individuals operating who know the work that you need to do. And don't just, this has been one of my biggest pet peeves over the course of the last 6 months is we're just going to hire someone Black or Indigenous because they fit the picture, because they
Mm-hmm.
check the box, because, yeah, that in and off that whole tokenism thing. That's how you start off. That's where you get caught up in tokenism. You
Yeah.
need people who understand the work that needs to be done. And again, life experience isn't always the only qualifier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it comes to certain understanding how to deal with people, how to get into spaces that you need to get into, and how to make people uncomfortable, how to make it awkward for people. Not everyone has that ability, and you have to be able to make it uncomfortable for people to want to change. Make them twitch in their seats a little bit, shift around every now and again. It this and I had this post a while back where I said the conversation around I think it was like around racism or anti-racism doesn't need to be palatable. If you're
Mm-hmm.
going in and looking for it to be someone patting you on the back and caressing your shoulders the whole time you're learning,
Mm-hmm.
that's not what you need. You need
True.
someone who's going to be willing to make your waiters feel super tight, make those boots with those stocking foot waiters feel super tight and uncomfortable, until you go out and buy a new pair or change it or do something, right? You know, that rod, the rod that you had, the rod, the line, and the fly that you were using before weren't catching any fish. Change it up a little bit. Maybe they're not biting on what you were using this morning. Change it up and do something new.
No, I really like that analogy because the other day nobody was catching any fish, and it's like already full blown winter here, by the way. It's like icing over and snow everywhere. And no one was catching anything. And so I just threw on a dry, and boom, it worked.
Wow.
And it was an awesome sized fish. It was a good sized brown that fought really hard. And it was just super awesome. But like, that's, during this time, we're so like, fly fishers are so trained to not, especially in winter. It's like you're only nymphing, right? Or if you see a rise, then, if they're feeding on the top, but, think differently. That's kind of what I like to say is just like try a different thing,
Yeah.
and see what kind of outcome can happen from that.
And then again, it's the same thing. Because you caught one fish with one fly, it's not going to work for every other fish.
Exactly.
So again, figure out how you can change it up. What different colors can you apply? Who else can you bring into the room to have this conversation? You've had the same person doing, even if you've had a DEI, department, or sorry, what do you call those things again? A department or whatever it is that spoke to DEI work.
Yeah.
And you've had that person working in the job for the past 25 years and nothing significant has come out of it for your company. What do you need to change? What hasn't been working? Why does your mandate look the same as it did in 1982 as it does today in 2020? What are the things that you as an organization need to change to make something different?
Right. I like the quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast, meaning you can have all the strategic plans in the world, but if your culture doesn't change,
Yep.
you're making zero progress. We've worked with organizations with the same strategic plan year over year, for the next 5 years, and it's like nothing has changed, and they've had diversity plans forever, and it's still the same old bullshit. So
that's why when it comes
to change the culture.
No, when people are now acting like this is brand new, like you've had diversity mandates built into your organizational strategy for years, and nothing's changed. Half the people on your board or half the director of your company didn't even know that it existed. Why didn't they know that it existed if you were acting on it?
Right. Exactly.
That's
none of my business. Just kidding.
Not my tea.
Okay, so so I guess this is where my plug is if companies don't know where to start, this is literally where the Angling for All pledge comes in. It is that next step that is non-judgmental, led with compassion over judgment, and really just focusing on a bottom line of definitions, where to start, getting over the awkwardness of talking to each other, especially if you're on a team within the same organization, or if you want to connect with other organizations that are also awkwardly going through this work. We do stuff like identity work, which is, who am I? How do I move about the world? How do other people move about the world? And really just kind of bringing that to the forefront. And then it's also focused on building community. How do we actually, now that we know how people move about, how do we actually build community and, connect with other people? And I think that in turn will kind of shift the industry culture. And so I feel like there's already been some really amazing, rich conversations through the folks that have already signed the Angling for All pledge. So highly recommend looking at Brown Folks Fishing Angling for All pledge website for details, and applications will be opening up again soon. So
nice. That was I was actually really happy to see that come out, and it just made it feel as if now there's a little bit more accountability, a little bit more someone who's looking and saying, from a BIPOC perspective, what are you doing? How are you being held accountable? Are you being only held accountable by your own words, or are you now required to live up to a certain set of requirements for that work to be real.
Yeah. Part of the requirement is for the CEO and executive team up to the board level to go through this training, because culture change does start from the top. And so I've seen, this is also from experience that of Sydney and I, we've seen a lot of grassroots organization from staff level, and that takes a long time to reach those higher level people, those leaders in the organization. If your leader is running the show and saying, we care about inclusion, we are anti-racist, then people follow suit. You're the one large and in charge. They're listening to you. They're taking your direction. They will listen, right? So there's, and that was interesting about the one company we were talking about is this wasn't coming from their CEO. It was coming from their marketing department. And I am more than happy to work with a marketing department. There's some awesome organizations that I am connecting with just because they have the most availability for communication, correspondence, but their CEO and their director is in the training and leading the awkward conversation, and that's when I know that their culture is ready for change, and they need some time. It's not going to happen overnight, but they're on the verge of actually like getting that the process is the goal, right?
Well, that's where it has to come from. Like nobody when you call IT and they can't fix your ticket, they fix your issue. They open up a ticket and send it higher up. And that's where it needs to come from. It needs to come from higher up, like you said, and it needs to be a real commitment from those. It can't be just a word of mouth or just a verbal commitment. It has to be like, you're going to commit to it and you're going to come in and you're going to do that work. And someone's holding you accountable for making sure that work is actually being done.
Yeah. And I've literally created that step. It's even like a baby step, which is just signing on to the pledge. And then, let's just talk about it. Like I'm a pretty curious person, and likely there is another organization and other individuals struggling with the same thing. And we've gone through that process. This is my line of work and my expertise. So, and yours too.
It's just, and it has to be willingness. It has to be, you have to want it. And that's all, I think that's all it simply boils down to, is wanting it. And if you don't want it and you're saying you want it, nothing's going to happen. So.
Exactly. Or if you're doing it for performative, it's not going to last very long, and I likely will decline working with you. There are some people that say, okay, I just want to sign your pledge and let's just go through these steps so I can like post it on my social. I'm like, no, let's maybe next year or in a few months, but like you're not ready.
We didn't come to you with a media kit for you to just pop stuff on your website, my friend. That wasn't the point of this conversation.
So let's move into some questions and comments that some followers made on our post, which is someone had responded, the brand by Coca-Cola, it's like I think it's called Topo Chico. It's like a sparkling water.
Okay.
Apparently they had deleted their Blackout Tuesday post. So it's interesting. I didn't know that. But I did see some folks deleting for different reasons, by the way. One, they weren't ready for the comments. And then another was chose to delete and they chose to respond or to listen instead. So I saw those two different types of deleting on that day. Okay, here's a question. How many diverse outdoor groups is too many?
It depends on what that diverse group looks like. It depends on, where people feel comfortable. I don't think there are too many at all. I don't think there's ever a point where there are too many. Not everybody feels comfortable in every setting. You go where you're comfortable. And again, when we look at, I will look at it here, like here in Canada, and I'll compare it to our cell phone providers, where we literally have two companies that monopolize the market. And anyone who wants to operate must buy their service from those large companies at a higher premium price. And then us as customers have to pay that premium price to make them still operate. If we limit the outdoor groups to just, two big outdoor groups where all the focus is on them, it's the same thing again. We have maybe one or two people speaking for an entire group of people, or we have one and two, a couple people who feel that their experience matters over everyone else's, or someone else who, you know, their biases are playing so heavily into this that they're still leaving a lot of people out of the conversation. So form your affinity groups. If you want to form your affinity groups and that makes you happy, there are millions of people in this world. Not everyone's going to come to your group. Form 50, 55, 100, 200, whatever you want to form your affinity group. If you're happy and if people are coming out to it, to the affinity group that you formed, obviously there was a need for it. Obviously there was someone else wanted something that they didn't see in that part of the world, or that part of the, and decided to join where you are. There's no hard and fast rule about creating affinity groups, about creating space. There's no hard and fast rule about making people feel comfortable. And a lot of people go where they feel comfortable. A lot of people still don't go outside because they just don't feel like any of those affinity groups that were formed before speaks to who they are. Some don't like the hoopla around the things that they do. Some want anonymity still. They want to go outside and just be people without having to worry about, you know, them, a company probably grabbing their image and using it somewhere. I've had people who've come out with us before who don't want their images used in any kind of marketing or advertising campaign because of tokenism. And they've asked that when we do photography, we don't include them in that. So we work to make people comfortable in that sense. There's another company that might say, if you come out, you have to take pictures or we have to use your image. That again excludes more people. So it's never going to be a perfect fit for anyone. So if you want to form an affinity group that says, we won't use your pictures, you don't have to come out for a hike with us, you don't have to pay when you come out for a hike, you can eat peanuts here because no one has an allergy. It's, you know, you have to find your niche, and no one's ever going to create the exact thing that everybody wants.
Yeah. It's like dating apps, right? Farmers
Yeah.
only, you got gluten-free singles. You got
Yeah.
I also, what I'm hearing mostly is intersectionality, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all under the umbrella of social justice, right? And,
Yeah.
and inclusion. It's where
Mm-hmm.
you feel that sense of belonging, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So yeah, I
Yeah.
hear that because, you know, when in the beginning you had introduced yourself as an angler and a woman and you're Black, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all three of those things combined, right? There's a space for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if there isn't, then you create one.
Great one. And then even in the sense that, like, there are groups that are Black women only. There are groups for Indigenous women only. There is a group like Brown Girl Outer World, which says BIPOC, and it's for everyone. I've had people come out. I've had people who've come out into with my group and said they thought it was for Black women only. And I'm like, I said it was for BIPOC because I still feel like even within the BIPOC community, there are a lot of relationships that still need healing. And if I can create a space for that using Brown Girl Outdoor World, why not do that? I don't want to, like, my space and my thought process is we're stronger together. They've already pushed us apart so far. They've already made us hate each other for no reason quite a bit of the times to fill their own needs. I don't want to play into that conversation. I don't want to be a part of that narrative. So I create a space where BIPOC people can come out and feel safe and feel free to be their most authentic self in that space without judgment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Okay. As of December 2020, do white people still recognize Blackout Tuesday? In your opinion, I guess, because we're both not white. So.
Erica, what do you think?
Next question. How important is it to get local governments / outdoor industry involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion in your eyes?
It is the ultimate goal.
Great.
There is no option for them to not be involved because they are the ones who are driving the conversations around our exclusion. So if they had the space to drive the conversation on our exclusion, they should be the ones who are making the effort, putting in the time to make sure that we as people are included in these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Which outdoor industry business is a good example of ally / authentic movement that will transcend?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, because every time I think I see someone doing something really good, I see someone else post that they're horrible. So I'm like, again, are these my biases? Am I basing my opinions off other people's biases? Or
Mm-hmm.
I don't have enough to go off of when it comes to the outdoor industry for me to say that someone's doing the best that they can do. And again, when I look, the only thing that I have seen so far, and the only thing that I've, kind of seen like change being made, or visible change, and seeing people like myself being represented,
Mm-hmm.
and it's with Orbis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I've really seen so far. And it wasn't even just a matter of, you know, them. I don't know if they put in money. I don't know if I think they signed as the pledge.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
even before the pledge came about, I saw Faith,
Mm-hmm.
I saw Chrissy,
Mm-hmm.
I saw faces, and I saw people, and I was like, yo, that looks like me,
Yeah.
right? That's like, those are people that they've chosen to invest in. They've
Mm-hmm.
chosen to bring on as a part of the team. Whether or not there's other things that happen outside of what I know, I'm only
Mm-hmm.
going based on what I see visually presented to me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. One of the things that I see a lot in the outdoor industries, particularly in the fly fishing industry, is a lot of, I mean, competition, right? That's just part of
mhm,
their business strategy, but they bring that into the DEI work. And it's like, who's doing the best? And I really struggle with that term best. I don't
mhm.
think that they're in equity, right? There is no
There's no
competition.
best.
So it's like you're either invested into doing the right thing and including
Mhm,
everybody, or you're choosing to you know um, be complacent and silent, which is
yeah.
contributing to violence and oppression.
Mhm,
So to me, there is no competition in that. I think of those characteristics again that we talked about, right? Like which company is actually listening, which company is like making action, which one is building community and uplifting those communities. So
mhm,
I think from personal experience, I would definitely agree with you on Orvis.
mhm,
Because like we had mentioned before, like the the truck or black window van, right?
mhm.
They weren't just dangling candy. It was a couple years in the process. So I just
And
happened to
this is
launch.
not a plug. Just that the people know, Orvis didn't pay us. It's not advertising. Just so y'all know.
No, for real. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that's people are always looking to like, well, who's doing it right? Right? Who's doing it
Mhm,
better? And I'm not putting them on a pedestal. They still have work to do, right? They saw the community of brown folks fishing, and instead of leading in, with we're going to do this and you need to tag us, right? This was an organic relationship that's been authentic for a while now. And so
or
that,
organizations that tagged us in pictures without our consent.
yeah, that's weird. Or if you're leading with competition as well. So
Yeah.
something to consider.
Yeah. There's
All
no
right.
right.
Yeah.
There's no
And
best.
it's always evolving, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we paying Black creators, editors, directors yet? Who needs to make room?
How do we spell everyone?
We don't know where to find
we,
that.
we we don't have the budget for that, right? We
Yeah.
want you to create the content. We want you to make everything perfect. We want you to deliver the highest quality content,
Yeah.
but we don't have budget for that.
We'll we'll give you this free internship. Anyway. So I would say there are some Black creators in the space. And I think if we're having a hard time finding them, then we're being lazy.
Hmm.
And there's always room to make, right? We could always expand that for sure. So,
And I think even though we do speak of you know paying Black creators, paying, what are you paying them?
mm,
Is that pay comparable to what you pay a white content creator? Because be honest, you can pay someone but you can pay them just to keep them quiet. And and I'll put it out there that a lot of people who are being paid didn't have the knowledge of what negotiating is. So they get told something, someone comes in and they say, oh, we'll give you this for that. And people get excited because that's a form of recognition. And I think these companies know about that. And so they're exploiting those people in terms of, yeah, we gave them recognition. We don't have to pay them, or we're going to pay them this amount of money. But meanwhile, you've paid for your white content creators' flights, you've paid for their meals, you've paid for everything, but you're unwilling to pay another BIPOC creator for the same thing.
Yeah,
or exactly. Pay them this amount of money.
Yeah, totally. All right. Last comment, which is juicy. You might want to discuss Sims Fishing and their owner Casey Walsh's support of Trump loyalists. Are you familiar with that?
So I saw a little bit about that, but I got to a point where I detached myself from that so much because it was becoming too draining for me. So I didn't really follow up on it, but I did see the comments, and I was like, and where they came back and said they didn't support them and blah, 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 and it was misunderstood, or I don't know. Do you have more insight on that than I do?
Yeah, so Daines was running for a political office in Montana, who is historically known for extracting public lands. And typically fly fishers, hunters and anglers and outdoor recreation, we want to protect our public lands. That's probably like the one thing we have in common is having, protecting these waters and lands. And there's this post on Facebook that this person had left a link, and it says, just caught Casey Walsh, who runs Sims, shilling out our crappy Trump-loving Senator Steve Daines in a television ad. So Walsh starts out saying in the ad, public lands are part of a way of life in Montana. That's why I'm supporting Senator Daines. And so if you actually know Daines and his political platform, it's quite the opposite. But Casey Walsh, who is the owner of Sims, was kind of caught, I would say, in a form of endorsing or at least supporting this Daines person. And so that's kind of like the fuzziness there, I guess you could say. The talk within the industry. And I actually had a Sims employee that will keep anonymous reach out to me, who was just saying, who had said, I just want to be clear that Sims does not endorse Steve Daines. That ad wrongly depicts Sims as endorsing him because one of our owners was featured in the ad. So this employee was really frustrated. It was a very frustrated response to this post that I had, in that they're basically getting tired of being accused of endorsing this person, Daines. And kind of said Sims does a lot of, puts a lot of money towards protecting public lands and cold, clean water over the years. They've had a lot of their employees in support of stopping the mine in Paradise Valley, which is also like another conservation effort. And so yeah, this person is really excited to work on the Sims staff and fully believes that they don't endorse Daines or support Daines. So, two different sides of the story there, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we do yeah. But then when you go on the website, on the Instagram page, and all you see is like their customer base, it leads you not to believe anything else. When you see the custom, like it kind of, pardon me?
Go ahead.
So no, I'm just saying, when you go on that retailer's Instagram page and you see the comments that their customers are leaving, and it just pretty much goes unchecked, it makes you wonder, what do they really support? There's no clear line in the sand. It's literally, the clear line in the sand would lead to the direction that everyone is calling them out on versus anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I would completely agree that it comes down to taking responsibility. And you know, I like how you put that visual of drawing a line in the sand. You know, if a company is so adamant of protecting public lands and not supporting Danes, then why not say something about it, right? Or something to allude. They're kind of letting their audiences be in this gray wishy-washy because I think they're afraid to really say anything, and they're part of the issue of we're comfortable, we don't want to divide ourselves, but they've already divided BIPOC people out of their efforts of anything really. And I
Yeah, we
actually
don't want to stir the pot.
Trump 2020, Trump and Danes 2020, and actually someone says, how can anyone who loves the outdoors and fishing and hunting endorse Trump and Danes? He's the environmental destroyer in chief, among other things. But if you care about cold water fisheries, reject Sim's endorsement of climate, say, denier Steve Daines, who wants a mine on the Smith River, and vote instead for a lifetime conservationist Steve Bullock. Remember who stopped Pebble Mine? Trump 2020.
Wow.
Can't believe you endorsed Daines over Bullock. Guess where the last time I buy any of your products? And then another Trump 2020.
Nobody wants to be held responsible.
Yeah.
So they blame everything on just being, you know, no one wants to take responsibility. So it's easier to say it's something else, someone else, than just simply taking some responsibility for it.
Right. Yeah. And that's literally what social justice is taking individual responsibility and not fixing blame. And so that's a step that Sims can do is, you know, take ownership, take responsibility, you know, and build from there. I think that there's already trust lost, especially from me, I would say, over this, you know, this gray area of where they actually stand. You know, who actually knows what happened, and they're not clearing the air because they're so afraid to say anything, you know, which is already pushing BIPOC further and further away. So that trust to me is already kind of damaged.
But I think and it goes for any other any other company in the industry that wants to speak on doing the right thing.
Great.
If you're going to speak on doing the right thing without being willing to back up your statements, you really have done absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
Like your word means nothing your words mean nothing. There's no action. You have said nothing. You might as well have stayed silent and supported the violence in your silence, other than trying to make yourself look good. And now you look like a double asshole.
Yeah, I would.
That exists. That's just the truth.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's really interesting because like they're not ready to be held accountable. Also, it's you know, from my personal perspective, is a performance that we're seeing that can that's going to fade pretty quickly unless they actually find professional help. You know, I've seen that happen. We've seen these mistakes happen in the outdoor industry, and I think that's probably why companies like this are afraid to speak out. You know, we've seen this with Camber Outdoors, if you're familiar. We've seen this within
Backcountry.
Backcountry. We've seen this with the Mountain Project, where REI had stolen the work of a Black woman about those rock climbing names that we talked about earlier. You know, and so we're going to make mistakes. We're human. We're companies. It's okay. We have, you know, humans are working in these companies. It's just taking freaking responsibility.
Yeah. And it's the same thing here. And it's the same thing here in Canada. It's like we preface everything we do on our niceness to not take responsibility. We preface everything we do on Canada being so perfect and without flaw. And even when we do have flaw, they're minor flaws, so they're not worth looking at. And that whole conversation is so dangerous, because under the cover of niceness, so much evil has happened, and so much evil continues to happen because we're so nice that we can't do any wrong, right? And I think that's like, you know, again, going out and saying you're willing to do the work as an organization, Canadian, American or not, be willing to take the shit that comes with doing the work, because it's never going to be easy. It's never going to be, if it's easy, it's wrong. That's all it is. If the work is easy, it's entirely wrong. And that's all that there is to it.
Right. Yes. On that note, I don't think I can have anything to say as a response, because all right. So thank you so much for your time. And as we kind of close out, so what's next for you? What are you working on? What can we kind of do a shout out to if you're highlighting any of your work now?
I'm still working on my GoFundMe campaign, which to raise 10 grand to buy equipment to make access to the outdoors a little bit easier. We're currently at just over like around 9,400, but I've paused that for a little bit. So from now until the 15th of December, anything donated will be used to purchase holiday baskets or make food donations or something to make this holiday season a little bit easier for a few families, just because the outdoor equipment is essential, but if you don't have the life that is predicated by you having food, then the outdoor equipment makes no sense. So putting a bit of that money into helping helping community in a different way. Working on quite a few projects for next year. I'm actually trying to find an organization right now that will help work with me to bring more people into fishing in Canada, bring more POCs, more BIPOC people into the fishing industry. And I actually, one of my buddies that I've gone fishing with, he's a super, super nice guy, really willing to help, really amazing fly angler and fly tyer. We're going to work to put together a project next year to do a river cleanup and a day of river cleanup and fly fishing lessons for BIPOC women. So I'm super excited for that and to see who I can get to help us sponsor that event. I'm going to put some work into that for the upcoming year, and just, a lot more working to get people outside to, again, and as I always say, I think my tagline or my slogan is know it, love it, protect it. If we can't protect what we don't know, and if we don't know it, we won't be willing to love it and protect it. So that's just what I want. More people out there doing the things that are going to cause them to love the environment so much that they work so hard at protecting it, and understanding that the white voice isn't the only voice when it comes to environmental protection.
Beautiful. Love it. You should make a bumper sticker. I'd put that on my car.
I'm gonna make some and send them on over. Or better yet, I'll bring it when our borders open up. How about that?
There you go. Oh yeah, take it. Ooh, awkward.
I know, it's a little bit.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, and all the work that you're doing for Brown Girl Outdoor World. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for creating this awesome space. And these awkward conversations are super, super helpful, and I really can't wait to see and watch it grow and how exciting it gets.
Thanks. Well, thank you. Me too.
You're welcome. Big shoes to fill, Erica, but you got this. I know, like, I connected with you just because of the work that you're doing, and you being that awkward angler, and you being a really dope person. So just keep doing that, and you got this.
Thanks. All right. Bye.
Bye.
I'm incredibly grateful for Demiesha's strong voice in this space. As she quotes, "We all deserve time outside in nature, forming a relationship with the land and getting to know it so that we can love it and protect it." This is located on the Brown Girl Outdoor World Gear Library GoFundMe site. Be sure to donate, as this creates access to gear and transportation, which are just a few barriers in the work to diversify the outdoors through adventure. As we move into 2021, I want to call in all anglers, including organizations, to create more action for a more authentic, inclusive, and equitable angling community. If you're an individual or an organization not knowing where to start your anti-racist journey, please visit the Angling for All pledge on brownfolksfishing.com/pledge. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Head over to awkwardangler.com for show notes and resources. You can send appreciations by subscribing, sharing with a friend, rating the podcast, or Venmo at Awkward Angler. Special thanks to my Brown Folks Fishing family for your support. I'm Erica Nelson, inviting you to be an Awkward Angler. See you next week.